I'm going to be diving into the AI systems that I use to become a content machine. So you might have noticed that I put out a huge amount of content, especially if you are part of the newsletter. I put out every single day a YouTube video, long form, a live stream, a newsletter, and around 5 to 8 pieces of short form content, including Instagram reels, carousels, images, posts, etc. A huge amount of content, which previously would not have been possible. But with the use of artificial intelligence used in an intelligent way, we can actually up our amount of content without losing our humanity. So I'm going to be talking about how we do that and how we combine our human opinion, our human hot takes with artificial intelligence to actually produce something of value. Because I do not believe we should just use AI blindly for content. What is content? This is very inside baseball. I'm already talking using jargon. I'm going to avoid doing that. So right now, having an audience, having distribution, having the ability to talk to people, to potential customers, or people who will hire you, clients, or people that you just want to get to do something in some way, to act. Let's say it's a charity or non-profit. This is equally important. An audience allows you to do that. It's very difficult if you have something you want to sell, or if you have something you want to take out into the world. It's very difficult to do that unless you have a lot of people to talk to. Over the last 2 years or so, I've built up an audience of about 300,000 people, and it's been a lot of work. What I've been using over this time is leveraging artificial intelligence systems to allow me to do that at scale. And I've basically built a media company with just 2 of us, myself and my business partner. An audience allows you to have distribution. So if you are selling something, it's much easier if you already have 100,000 people you can talk to. It's much easier if you take your product or your offer to that existing audience. So I built up my audience. We've now sold over $500,000 worth of product to that audience in the last year because we had spent the groundwork, laid down the foundation in order to do that. It's really important. So my way of doing content, and the way that I recommend a lot of people follow, is not necessarily about entertainment. It's not about silly videos. It's not about dancing on TikTok, but instead it's about educating. It's about teaching. It is about showing people that you have some kind of expertise, helping them to apply the expertise, helping them to learn, to up their knowledge, and then using that to build up a following. So you are going to teach. That puts you in a certain role, a role of authority, a key person of influence, to quote Daniel Priestley. That's going to build up trust. That is going to hopefully make you likable as well. And then that's going to start to snowball your audience. This is what I highly recommend in the business world. If you just want to become an influencer, if you just want to, get paid to go stay in 5-star hotels, fine, do entertainment, look beautiful, whatever it is. But if you are trying to build a business, you need to put value in. You need to show people that you are worth listening to and that you are trustworthy. So super important. So the content that I highly recommend is education focused. Now, lots of people have probably told you this. If you are starting a business and you need to produce content, you need to be on social media, you need to be shooting 2 videos a day, you need to be writing blog articles, you need a newsletter, blah, blah, blah. All of these experts and these gurus will tell you this kind of stuff, and it is overwhelming. If you're trying to build your business, that's already a full-time job. So if you have some guy yelling at you saying you need a newsletter, you need to be doing 10 videos a day, you need to be doing this, that's just extra work. And it's another full-time job, honestly, doing content. So what tends to happen is people get overwhelmed and they never, ever start. I highly recommend you just start by talking to your camera. That is talking to your telephone and posting onto TikTok or Instagram. That is the basics. But I know people like to see what the larger system looks like. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. And then I'm going to show you a minimum viability version of that. Because it is a job, a full-time job, becoming a content creator. And while you're building your business and you know you need an audience to drive your business, it is more work. So what I'm going to show you is my full version. Then I'm going to show you a stripped down version. First, so what do I actually produce on a daily basis? Once I do a live stream, that live stream is cut up into lots of other content assets, and those content assets I will produce over the day. I actually create every single day a dashboard that looks like this. It's an HTML dashboard. Zoom in a bit for you, where it has, this particular one has 12 scripts for me. So these are short form scripts. It has a draft of a newsletter. So this newsletter here goes into something like this, which is my newsletter, aiwithkyle.com. And that's totally free, so make sure you're subscribed. It also creates PDFs. So these are giveaways based off what I've talked about in the live stream, which people can use as additional resources. It gives them a checklist. It gives them a way to actually enact what I've been talking about, as well as prompts. I also create a YouTube video off the back of this, and carousels and many, many other assets. Lots and lots of assets mean you can be everywhere all at once at the same time. So here's a couple of examples. So this is the newsletter on the left-hand side. This is a live version of a newsletter. All of these images are generated in ChatGPT. So this looks like a huge amount of work, but artificial intelligence has allowed me to create something like this, something valuable very, very quickly. It also creates things like covers for my Instagram. So if you look at my Instagram, you can see most of them look more or less like me. Not that one, that is a goblin, but most of them look fairly similar to me, I would say, which is pretty cool. That is only possible since the release of the new Images 2.0 from ChatGPT. It is very, very good at this kind of thing. So you can up your branding very, very quickly. I also create thumbnails and covers for things like LinkedIn posts and carousels, which can be posted onto Instagram and LinkedIn. You can produce a huge amount of content using artificial intelligence. However, you need to include yourself. It is very tempting to see all of this and be like, oh, I can now produce infinite amount of content using artificial intelligence. I can just give it a topic, it can spin out a blog article, it can write whatever I need it to write, it can produce videos, I can do faceless videos, or I can do AI avatar, it can generate these kind of images for me, it can generate carousels. It's very tempting to be like, oh, shit, I don't have to do anything. I'm just going to set these tools off and they're going to do it for me. Terrible mistake. The reason is that's going to lead to AI slop. We have too much AI generated content already, and it's only going to get worse. You need to include yourself in it. You need to include your humanity and leverage that with artificial intelligence. So what I'm going to show you is the full system. Now, this is overwhelming. There's a lot going on here, but I want to give you a quick overview. Then I'm going to go section by section through what each of these are and how you can actually enact them. I would point out, though, this is my complete system. I highly recommend you start with something a lot smaller. What I do is relatively mad, doing a daily live stream, doing a daily newsletter, doing daily 5 to 8 videos, doing a daily DM giveaway, doing a daily carousel, doing a daily LinkedIn post. That is too much. Do not start there. I'm going to show you the full version, and then I'm going to show you how you start with a more realistic starting point, and then you can build and start to layer in. Do not try to do this off the top, because only madness that way lies. So this is the full loop. I'm going to give you a quick summary so you understand kind of the shape of this, and then I'm going to dive into each of the steps. So every morning I wake up and my AI agent has selected a topic for me, or it's sent me a brief of a number of different potential topics. It would say, hey, based on the instructions you've given me, I found these different news articles. So for example, the other day, the Mark Andreessen prompt was trending. So this one about Mark Andreessen's system prompt, and everyone was laughing at it and saying it's not very good. So that was a trending topic on Twitter. My bot, my agent, picked up on that and said, hey, you might want to check this out. There is a system prompt by Mark Andreessen, the venture capitalist, and people are laughing at it. So review it, have a look at it, and maybe we can do a newsletter on it. So that's what I selected. The agent, my AI, gives me a couple of content choices. I will choose one. I will then give human notes. I use my voice personally. So it will say, hey, what kind of hot takes, what kind of things do you think about this? And I will just record into Claude or into my agent and send it off to my agent what I think about it. So giving it my basics. It will then create a slide deck outline. I will send a few notes. These slides that you are looking at right now are generated in using this method. So if you think these slides look good, which I do, including this incredibly complicated diagram, this has all been generated using this method. So I did not cheat by doing this presentation using another method. I've done it all through this method. I use ChatGPT to generate these slides. I used to use Notebook LM, but now Images 2.0 is better. You need to be ready to use whatever is best for the job. Right now, it is Images 2.0. Once I have slides like this, I will do a live stream. So I personally do a live stream on TikTok, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, X, and Facebook, all at the same time, simultaneously. I'm also recording a clean 4K version as well, which will go on YouTube later. The reason I do this, this is super important, is you need to inject humanity into it. So if I had just gone through and not allowed humanity into any of these processes, then I would end up with something very AI sounding. By doing a live stream, that allows me to, for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, to give my opinions. All of those opinions, all of those hot takes, all of those ways of thinking will be captured in a transcript. That transcript then goes into processing afterwards. So the transcript I produce using Descript, you could use Whisperflow, you can use whatever you want. That transcript will then go into my content processing agent, which spits out a dashboard like this. So what you generate using these agents depends on what outputs you want. For me, it is a newsletter draft. So it takes my live stream text, everything that I've said, it takes the slide deck and it combines them, and it creates a newsletter based on custom prompts, based on past issues I've created, based on instructions I've given it. It also creates scripts for short form TikTok and Instagram videos. So this one in particular, from the Mark Andreessen system prompt, has created 12 video scripts. I might not shoot them all, but this gives me options. It gives me things I can write about. So here we go. Stop telling ChatGPT it's a world-class expert. It does literally nothing. The first line of the system prompt in Mark Andreessen's prompt was, "You are a world-class expert in all fields." That's a good hook. I can say that doesn't really do anything. So this is all automated. This all spits out based on custom instructions that I have given to my agents. From here, I have two streams. I split it into long form and short form. Long form is primarily from the newsletter, which I'm going to give a human edit. Again, you have to add humanity back into it. Short form is the short form video scripts I will then record live. So I hold up my phone, I will talk to my phone. Again, that is the human element. We don't remove the human because we need that for the authenticity. We need it to make sure it's not just generic AI slop. And then off the back of that, we have multiple assets that are created. Everything is scheduled. And then we have a feedback loop where it will compare my final results against the initial drafts, and it will use that to improve the system. This allows me to create 20 plus pieces of content every single day, very, very quickly as well. So I'm going to go through step by step each of these so you can understand what is actually happening underneath the hood. So topic selection, I personally, right now, I'm using Hermes. Previously, I was using OpenClaw for this, and it would send me a little WhatsApp. I've switched recently to Hermes. You can use whatever you want. Hell, you can set up a recurring task in Codex, in Claude Code. You could even sit down and talk to ChatGPT and say, hey, what's new in my sphere? Fully automated. You'd want it to deliver a report to you, a scheduled report every single morning. I sit outside, I have my coffee, I read through that, and I chat to my AI agent. So topic selection basically is scanning for topics every day. You need to decide, depending on your business, depending on your brand, if you want to do timely, so if you want to respond to news articles, or if you want to do something a bit more evergreen. What I personally do is I will respond to what's new and what's hot in the news, but I'll try and twist that into something that is actionable in the long term. So for example, with the Mark Andreessen, what was timely was his custom prompt came out and Twitter was laughing at him. I use that as a jumping off point to talk about prompting as a whole and how you can write better prompts, how you can write better custom instructions. So that is a mix of timely moving into evergreen. That is up to you what you do. You could just do the news every day. You could do what's hot and jump on those trends, or you could do purely evergreen, long-ranging content. Totally up to you. Step 2, prep. So the agent will give me a couple of topics. I will choose one, say, yep, that one sounds good. And I will literally give voice notes. I will talk and send a voice note that will be used as the basis. That's when I give my take on it. And I use this as a way to brain dump. Voice notes I prefer because it means I'm not editing. I am just getting my ideas, my opinions out of my head. I'm not actually typing them out. I'm not trying to structure my thoughts. So it becomes a first thought, best thought kind of process, because AI is smart enough to be able to order that into something that works. That is then turned into an outline, not the slides yet, but into a written outline of what the slides could look like. I will do a quick pass of that. I will say maybe switch slide 3 and 4, maybe get rid of slide 8. We don't really need that. And then I will have ChatGPT generate that. Right now, I have ChatGPT generate it manually. I copy and paste the outline into ChatGPT. The reason is the API for the images is not as good as the graphical version at the moment. That will probably change. As soon as that changes, I'll be able to automate this even more. And previously I used to use Notebook LM, but ChatGPT Images 2 is now better than that for generating slides. You need to be flexible. You need to change and slot in what works best for each component of this workflow. That doesn't mean you need to change the workflow all of the time. In fact, don't do that. Once you've got something working, good, but you can slot in and out and test components without wrecking everything. You need to get on camera and you need to provide your opinions. You need to provide your thoughts. This is the hard work. This is the difficult part. And I do not expect everybody to immediately be excited about this prospect. But I think increasingly, as artificial intelligence becomes the de facto default for creating content, it's more important to get good at public speaking, to get good at thinking on the fly, to get good at what I'm doing right now, which is talking to a camera or later talking on stage. Super, super, super important. This does not come naturally to me. I'm naturally extremely introverted. I used to say all the time and trip over my words, but I practiced. I did live streams every single day, as well as short form videos every single day until I became more fluent in my speaking. And now you cannot shut me up. It's a problem in the opposite direction. So I go live. I don't recommend going live every single day. That is psychopathy. I know Sarah, one of my students and somebody in one of my cohorts, she did live streams every single day for 30 days. Massive kudos, absolutely amazing work. I would not recommend that to most people because that is not just a lot of time, but it's also quite draining, especially if you've never done a live stream before, if you've never talked to camera like this. Doing so is actually quite psychologically draining. It will tire you out. What you can do, and this is talking about the minimum viability product version of this, the simpler version of this, is you can skip the live, so don't do a live, but just have the AI interview you. So it's going to interview you and you are going to talk using the voice mode and give your opinions. That allows the AI to basically come up with a transcript, which is what we're going to need next for the content processing, but without you getting on camera. Now, obviously, that means you don't then have a live stream asset. You then don't have a YouTube long form video asset. You don't have the ability to clip from the live stream. So you lose a few assets, but that is a much easier way into it. So literally, you go through the process, it will prep things up for you. And then you're going to say, okay, now interview me on this topic. And it will give you a list of questions. You're going to record your answers into AI. So you can use the Claude or the ChatGPT app, or you can do it via an agent. Totally up to you. That is a simpler way to do that without doing lives. You won't get as much bang for your buck, but it's an easier way to get started. From here, I personally send my videos off to a YouTube editor, so a human editor. The reason being that we haven't found the video editing to be good enough using artificial intelligence yet. We much prefer to use a human. That is up to you. I then also drop the transcript file into a program called Descript. We do this manually at the moment just because there isn't an easy API connection and it takes a few seconds. If it takes you 5 seconds to drop it, drag and drop it from one thing to another, it's totally fine. And that then creates a transcript. That transcript then goes into the brain. It goes into, I literally have something called my AI brain, which is a folder, GitHub folder connected to an Obsidian vault, but that goes into a content processing workflow. So this is a combination of triggers. It is a combination of skill files I've created. I have an individual skill file that runs the process, but also individual skills for each of the outputs. So it will go through each of the outputs and prepare them one by one by one. And again, there's a couple of things that happen. The transcript itself will be converted into a newsletter. So this is an example of the newsletter. It tidies up, it collects my thoughts, it removes things that are not relevant, and it gets it into a decent first draft for me. That will be human edited by me. So again, there is a human edit here. That's because I don't personally want to read pure AI writing, and I don't think anyone else should have to do so. So I will do a human edit before I publish that. That newsletter is also drafted into Carousels. Let me see if I can find one here. This might be tricky because I post so much. See if I can find a carousel. Is that one? No. So this is a carousel of the newsletter. And again, this is being created by ChatGPT. because ChatGPT is able to deal with the complexity of the newsletter and turn it into good-looking infographics like this. You could use Claude, but Claude won't be able to create these images, which in a case like this, I think the image makes it much clearer than pure text. That is up to you, of course, but ChatGPT does a good job on this. So this is a carousel created from the newsletter, which is another asset for me. It also creates something for the DM giveaway. So this PDF here is generated off the back of the newsletter and is basically an actionable version of the newsletter for people who want to do something with this information. This one in particular talks about how to build a system prompt, and then it gives you an interview prompt, which you can use to interview yourself to create a better system prompt. This will be used with a piece of software called ManyChats to run DM giveaways in order to collect email addresses. And using this, I collect about 100 to 300 emails every single day. And each of those emails is worth a couple of dollars. Actually, that's not true. It's more like $10 per email on average. So you can see that adds up very, very quickly. So these are generated off the long form, but you could create more. The main thing here is that you are using your human transcript from your human opinions and then running it through artificial intelligence. Super important. Short form, very similar, but I take the newsletter and I split it out into scripts. So I have Claude, it's the model behind the scenes here. I ask it to go through the newsletter and find things that have the potential to go viral or the potential to be very valuable short form videos. We're talking 30 seconds, 60 seconds maximum. So it has to find something which can be encapsulated in a very short amount of time. It then generates these scripts for me, as well as descriptions for putting it underneath the video and hashtags as well. I will then go ahead and record these myself on a phone, talking to camera again, because I need to have the human authenticity in there. You could use something like HeyGen to use artificial intelligence to generate this for you. I don't think that is the way, but that is an option for you as well. And then feed those scripts into ChatGPT in order to generate these reel covers as well. Again, it's another skill. And then connect everything together and post it. So from the long form stream, we have the newsletter draft, the LinkedIn article, because I post the newsletter on LinkedIn as well, and a header to go along with it. Carousels, PDF giveaway. From the short form stream, we have 5 to 8 videos. I normally generate about 12 scripts and produce 5 to 8 maybe. We have the Instagram reel covers. We have TikTok reel covers. In terms of the scheduling, you can use something like Blotato, or you can do it all manually yourself. Totally up to you. There are many ways to do it. One problem with this system is you end up with so much content that scheduling becomes a new problem. So you've gone from, oh God, I don't know how to make any content, to, oh no, I have far too much content. What do I do with it all? So I recommend looking into using a scheduler. Blotato will do the job, but there are many, many out there as well. Again, you must add the human back in. So we have the human at multiple stages. We have for the voice notes, for the initial draft, the live stream itself, or the interview if you're replacing it. And then for the streams, I personally recommend editing the newsletter, not just using AI, and then doing recording for the short form videos as well. Whatever you're producing, I think find where you can use AI and you can get away with it and it's going to leverage you without it impacting on the final quality. And then that gives you more time to insert the human back into it, the authenticity. Okay, and then finally, all of this compounds. So as I produce things like newsletter drafts, for example, what I will do is I will have my system once a week compare the newsletter draft that it produced for me against the final versions which are published on my website. That allows it to look at what has changed between its draft and between the human version, and therefore know how it can improve its future drafts. So I do this with the newsletters. You can also do it with the short form videos if you pull all of the transcripts and have them compare to the scripts that it generated. And you can use that and loop it so that it self-improves over time. So I do a weekly audit, basically, in order to improve. And then obviously each day it is giving you a new topic. It is able to improve the topics it's bringing you. It's able to improve the hooks and the kind of suggestions that it makes to you based on what it knows is working. You can also feed back in content analytics. That's slightly more advanced, but you're basically dropping in your Instagram, your TikTok, your YouTube analytics back into this system and saying, hey, have a look at the topics that we've covered over the last month, have a look at the performance, and use that to change the topic suggestion and to improve that over time. Works a treat. What tools? So this is a presentation about agentic workflows. When I was first asked to put together this presentation, I was using OpenClaw exclusively. I then transitioned to using Claude more, so Claude Cowork and Claude Code in the background. And now I'm using Hermes more, playing around with Hermes. I think the actual agentic tool you use is less important than actually working out the workflows that are valuable for your business. There's always going to be a new hotness. There's always going to be a new tool. And it's very tempting, and I see a lot of people doing this, just bouncing around from one tool to the next, trying to find the thing that works for them. Any of these tools can work for you if you actually spend some time getting it to fit your workflow. That is the most important thing. Tweaking with the inputs and the outputs and the process in the middle in order to generate something that actually works for what you need to do, which in this case is generating an audience. And whether you're faffing around with, it doesn't matter what harness you're working with, you can get it to work. So don't spend more time fiddling with Hermes and fiddling with OpenClaw than actually doing the work. It's a very, very easy trick to fall into. And I know I've fallen afoul of this several times. But what I use right now, so for topic scanning, I'm using Claude in the background with agents. For slides and visuals, I use ChatGPT Images 2.0. For transcript, I use Descript. That's mainly because it also goes to the editor. You could also use Whisperflow, totally up to you. Then I use Claude Cowork and Claude Code for the newsletters and the scripts. Everything is inside of a project. And in scheduling, we're using Blotato. But again, these will change over time. You can slot different tools in as long as you keep your workflow as a whole working. Again, do not try to build all of this at the same time. This is a system that has been refined and added to and has accreted various modules over months now. Pretty much since, I'd say about December. We're now in May, as agents became more viable. Start with the most basic, which is something that takes your voice recording or it takes a live stream and it turns it into a couple of assets for you. So something like a newsletter. That's all you need for now. Or social posts. Start with that and then build it out from there. Pick a topic, have the agent interview you. So just talking to your chatbot, that is fine for now. You don't need to build all infrastructure yet. You answer in your own voice. Again, voice is useful because it allows it to capture your tone of voice, how you speak, not just what you are saying, and then feed that in as raw materials to create a newsletter or to create scripts for short form videos that you can shoot for Instagram and TikTok. That's it. Don't worry about a central brain or self-improving analytics or generating 10 different types of visual assets off it. Just start very simple and then start to add over time. You can just increase what it can do over weeks, over months, knowing that you are constantly improving and you're constantly able to put out more content. You need to make sure that it's not taking you more time every single day. That's always going to be a risk that you might suddenly, your content production is taking not 1 hour, but suddenly it's taking 4 or 5 hours. And if you just keep adding more layers, it's just going to take up more time and you might not necessarily see any additional benefit. So work, automate, get the outputs working as you need them, then and only then move on to adding more as well. So don't do what I do. Don't jump straight in and try and create the most complicated system. Even though you can become a one-person media company, you don't need to do that. You can build up step by step. And you must remember to leave the human in. You use the human for the human parts, the bits that are important, to keep this authentic, to keep this valuable for your audience member. You do not automate with artificial intelligence because you can. You automate the parts of artificial intelligence that free you up to add more of your humanity back into the mix, because that is going to be increasingly important moving forward. AI material is too easy to create. That means it's going to flood the market and decrease the marginal value of it. You being able to get on camera, you being able to talk to TikTok, you being able to do a live stream like this, you being able to get up on stage is going to become increasingly more valuable. So lean into that whilst using artificial intelligence to automate the boring stuff in the background. And doing so, you can become a one-person media company. That is now viable. Previously, you would need a team of people. For this workflow, you'd probably need 5+ people all working for you full-time to be able to generate that kind of content. You need yourself plus some good AI systems, and you need to split the work between yourself and the AI intelligently so that the AI is working on what it should be, whilst you are working on what you as a human can do more effectively than the AI. So I'm going to put all of this in my newsletter. I will put everything into the newsletter. You can get that newsletter at aiwithkyle.com. If you're watching this later, there will be a link down below which will allow you to capture everything. It's taken me months and months to build up to this point, and I'm very happy to share how I do it and how we create just an obscene amount of content, even with a very, very small team. Cool. Thank you guys, and I will see you. Cheers.